All right, welcome back. It's been a bit, and I'm still working on an explanation video for how the mechanics of this machine work. But in the meantime, I don't have internet access right now, and there's something that I realized this machine could actually really use and benefit from a lot. And I think that some of you might appreciate this as well. And what that is a safety mechanism. So if you've ever ran a World Eater in the last year or two, you've probably used a version of the World Eater that will automatically stop if it breaks. So if one of the sweepers encounters like Obsidian or something, there's versions of the World Eater by Zyre, XCOM, Pixels that will stop the World Eater if that happens, and then it won't like super break. It'll only have like a little breakage, and that's really nice. And I realized we could do that pretty easily with this machine as well. Now, there are a couple of downsides to doing that. So we'll talk about how we're going to do the mechanism, and then we're going to go ahead and just implement it ourselves in this video, because I literally have nothing better to do right now. So the first downside is pretty simple. We're going to have to redo a bunch of this wiring. We have two choices. Choice number one is we could just be really janky and basically put an extra massive wire in, like a second wire on top of this, to do like an AND gate over here. That seems kind of awful to me, so we'll probably end up doing that if I run out of time. But ideally, we should just redo this wiring such that we can control the state of the machine from a different location. The second downside of this safety mechanism is caused by how we're actually trying to enforce the mechanism. So basically, we're going to call this machine broken if we don't get all the pistons back after an iteration. That is, so for example, if the bedrock breaker comes here and say, so this is 350 wide, if the bedrock breaker comes back and it only has like 400, that's not the correct number. That's too many. That would be very strange. Duplicating pistons would also be a failure mode, but we can't deal with that. So it is what it is. But if it comes back and it has like, say, 300 pistons because somebody like wandered close and then walked away, we want to be able to detect that it only got 300 pistons back and not keep going. Because if we keep going after that, it will eventually break the machine. That's not really what we're going for here. We like machines that keep working. That's always a big upside. So in order to detect that, I'm not going to build in any kind of circuit to detect the number of items. That sounds awful and probably something you could do with minecart somehow, but I don't know how, so not gonna try. What we're gonna do is pretty simple. So the pistons come up the machine over there, they come down here to the player that places the pistons, and already what happens is that when the player finishes placing the very last piston, so when it places, in this case, 350 pistons in a row, the piston over here will try to push the last piston. It'll fail because everything's filled. There's no more places to put a piston. And then this mechanism over here will trigger, and that moves the floor placer forward, and it also moves the piston placing player forward. And what we're going to do is we're just basically going to add a bunch of logic onto this. We're going to raise it up over here, and then we're going to use this logic to control when we start the next iteration of the machine. So for example, if the player got back, say, 340 pistons with this setup, it would place the 340th piston, and there's still room to place more pistons. So this will keep on just like, waiting for that. Nothing will happen over here, and the machine won't move over, and it'll basically just stop. So the big downside to this is pretty big, unfortunately. It is a huge downside. So you don't want to do this unless you really think that there's going to be inconsistencies with your running of the machine. And that downside is that it's going to be way slower. So the way this machine works currently is that the control of the machine is controlled by this player over here, which keeps in this case, if we're looking at the machine this way, the player over here will keep the left side of the bedrock breaker in a lazy chunk. And then the player over there keeps the right side of the bedrock breaker in a lazy chunk. And so when this player here gets back, the lazy chunk piston entities will drop down into a flying machine over there or whatever, and we gather them back. But the machine immediately starts running again. So this player here will start moving in this direction, and we'll start destroying the heads of these pistons, that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of put in a hack solution. This is not the best solution. There are definitely other things you could do instead. But our hack solution is going to be very simple. We're going to say when the player finishes placing the piston items, the machine is able to go again. But that means that this player here will have to wait until we finish placing all the piston items, which in this case might be like 4 minutes. So basically, each row is going to have an extra 4-minute overhead to it, which it's not really ideal, and that's why I don't think you should do this if you can avoid it. But In this case, if we're having issues, specifically, I want to see if I can build this machine on a paper server. And my experience so far testing it in like a creative paper server is that the machine tends to lose a couple pistons here and there. The chunk loading is really weird and doesn't work properly from what I can tell. If you want to run this on, say, a paper server or in like weird conditions, or you really just want to run in the background of your server, maybe you're fine with like spawning a couple carpet bots to run in the background, but you also don't want to go back and manage it and like have to remember to turn it off. This will still save you time because you'll be able to run the machine when you normally wouldn't be able to. So it could be useful. But yeah, with that said, what we're going to try and do here is basically change this circuit here so that the player in this minecart here is actually pushed over by the circuit instead of the player managing the circuit itself. And the way we're going to do that is, as we mentioned earlier, we're going to get an output from over here. So when this segment here moves over in this direction, then we know that this player can go back and we can restart the machine basically. So this entire chain here is mostly just a instant line. You can tell because we have a bunch of extended pistons facing the opposite direction. So over here, the way things work currently is that this piston here, when the flying machine gets back, pulls this back, which pulls back this segment of slime here. And then this observer here fires. This piston pulls back this segment of slime. This piston over here is triggered by this observer, pulls back this segment. And as this redstone block is getting pulled back, this piston starts to retract. This redstone block starts getting pulled back. This piston starts to retract, etc. All the way over here. There's no delay here. It's just a bunch of instant extensions, which then launches the other player on the other side. So what we want to do here is basically just launch this player here and this player at the correct offset. We need to make sure that everything gets launched at the same relative time that it would normally. We're just going to launch in the other direction. We're going to pull things. We're going to pull things back from over here instead of pulling them back from over here, basically. So we do have to redo this line. It shouldn't take that long. It's not a big deal. So just a bit of extra work to do. There is one other difficulty. Normally, this line getting pulled back is what triggers the flying machine down here to go back and return the pistons to the player. Obviously, if we wait for this to get pulled back to return the pistons to the player will never receive the pistons, thus never pulling this back, and it just won't work. So we do have to redo a bit of logic in here. That being said, I'm probably not going to bother because this is really, really jank already. So we're just going to add a bit of a jank thing to the side here or something and send back the flying machine. Most likely we'll just add a little timer and we'll just send back the flying machine after delay. That way we know that this machine here, this flying machine has returned and the items are no longer floating and they've fallen into the flying machine and can be returned. All right, so we're over here with a development area selection. And what we're going to do is we're just going to remove this. But first off, we need to keep in mind the timings. So pretty simple. This flying machine moves back. So this piston starts to retract. And then we have one pulling extension here and then two pulling extensions here. And then pretty much instantly after that, we're going to go ahead and do this. And also trigger this. Okay, so we're not actually triggering anything over here at all. This gets moved over in the next iteration. And we're also going to trigger this over here. We're just going to attach to this later. So we're going to go ahead and kind of scoop this up over here and just make sure we add a bit of delay here and then trigger this instantly in the other direction. So in order to connect things up from over here, we will use a couple instant extensions. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to add an instant extension here. Pretty much everything here is already at 12 blocks. So it's at push limit. For example, this piston here is not at push limit. That's pretty convenient. But this piston here is also not at push limit. Anyways, fortunately, we don't have to care that these pistons are definitely both at push limit. We're just going to add a piston here, and this will be controlled by this redstone block. When the machine moves forward in this direction, this redstone block here is also pushed in this direction, and that means that this piston here will retract, and we can add all of our logic up over to here onto this piston. So when this is pulled over, this piston here will get triggered by the observer, and we'll push this piston back over in this direction. I guess that's pretty simple. We probably don't need to explain all this, but that's fine. I don't want to count properly, so let's just make sure. That's retracting 13 blocks. We need to destroy 2, put a redstone block here, and then just continue our instant extension. All right, so we're already up at the top, and that makes things pretty easy. So as we said earlier, we just have to make sure that our relative timings are correct. to keep things really, really simple, I'm just going to keep this working the exact way it works right now. And we're just going to remove this piston. But to make sure that we can remove this piston, yeah, I don't actually know if we can remove this piston, so we should probably double check that real quick. So the reason it doesn't work properly is because this system here that stops the machine temporarily is based on increasing the number of blocks so that this piston here can't retract. And obviously we've removed one block, the piston here. So by removing that block, we have broken the flying machine. And that's why you test. Life lessons going on here. So I just went ahead and found the machine again. We want to remove this piston, but we're not going to just replace it with nothing. In order to keep the machine working the same as it did before, we're just going to put a random block here. Yeah, so with that finished with air quotes, I guess, let's go ahead and see if we can reverse this. Alright, so this is probably the simplest way to keep things working in exactly the same manner. We've just added a piston here, and when we start to retract this redstone block, this piston here will immediately retract. Alright, so this is a pretty simple setup. When we move this redstone block in this direction, everything here will just get moved over and we'll start the flying machine just as back before when we had a redstone block, I don't know, here or something. And that would start the machine when we destroyed it. We do need to make sure that all the timings remain the same though, so let's just make sure that's the case. I think it's mostly just this here, so we just need to remember that there's a little bit of delay. There should be 2 pulling extensions of delay before we execute anything on the other side over there. Then we can go ahead and remove all of this. Alright, we need to make sure we're not removing anything that we actually need, which is going to be this stuff over here. Alright, pretty simple. Alright, so let's just go ahead and attach everything up. It should be not too complicated from here. Add a redstone block over here instead, our extension. Just as before, we're going to go ahead and do this. Simple instant line extension. Send the slime blocks over here. And we're going to go ahead and instantaneously retract that piston over there. But we're going to add a little bit of delay here. We're going to add 2 pulling extensions. So do one here, then one here. And in order to make that all work properly, we'll just finagle things to get them to work. That's not a huge concern. Send this back there, and then when this gets pulled back, we need to retract this piston here. And that should lead to the exact same amount of delay that we had before. So we're going to start retracting that segment there, and then 2 pulling extensions later, we will retract this redstone block here, just as we were before, allowing all the logic over here to fire. Now the only thing we have to do is to connect this piston here up to the segment over there, and we have to do it all with instant wire. So it might be a bit ugly, but not a big deal. Should be pretty easy to fit in. I guess we might as well just use the exact same layout that was being used by Dezu. That way it'll look a bit nicer with this segment over here. That being said, actually, we might be able to hack something in here. Give me just a second here. Right, so here is an instant line. That is the same one used in this machine, the one that we would normally use to extend things. And what we want to do is basically just flip it around. So we want to go in the opposite direction. So when this redstone block gets moved back, we want to move back this segment here instead of this segment here. And that's actually not that hard to do with Lightmatica. We'll go into our placement, we'll configure it, and we will mirror it. I don't know which one. This one looks good to me. We pull back this redstone block. Yep, that's perfect. So we can go ahead and put this back into the machine. We'll kind of just chuck it in here. It should work. I have lots of faith, okay? I'm sure we'll be fine. Let's go ahead and do this. Connect that up. Remove that redstone, and then we just have to connect this over here. I didn't count, but I hope that this works. 11 blocks. Okay, it's not super efficient, but it's good enough for me. Oh, that's pretty much perfect. So what we'll do is we'll just paste this in, and we will fix this over here. And what we can do is we can replace this piston here with this piston here, basically. So we'll just connect that up, and it's good. Looks good to me. Hopefully, we have push limit for this. If it's 1 off, I will be very sad. It is not. We're good. 11 blocks on both sides. Okay, that's good enough for me. So now that we have that done, that should be the majority of the work we need to do. Basically, when this finishes over here and everything moves back, that will also move back this line here, which will start off this player in the other direction, and it'll move back the other line over here. We should probably connect this again. Probably a good idea. And I don't actually remember what this line does, so let's figure that out real quick. I'm pretty sure this is what sends back the flying machine. I don't know if it actually does anything else. So normally, when this moves back, this piston will just extend, and then if it moves back again, this piston will retract. I'm pretty sure that this is only what sends back the flying machine over there, but we should double check. I don't remember what I did here. Oh, that is a lot of delay. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of delay. Why do we have this much delay? What does this do? Oh goodness. Okay, we should figure out what's going on this side first, I guess. I won't lie, I'm kind of confused, so this might take a little bit. We just gotta figure what's going on here. So this is just delay. That moves us all the way down over to here. And more delay to over here, that's fine. And more delay to over here, which will eventually move this back. What in the world is this? Okay, now I see how things work. Wow, this is quite something, I won't lie. So over here, we're using, I don't know, some logic to move back this piston here, which pulls back this segment here, which blocks the machine 1 block earlier. Then later on, to restart the machine, we pull this observer in, which triggers this piston, which triggers this observer, which restarts the machine and sends it back in this direction. So that's, I mean, it's something you can do, I guess. Just to be clear, Dezu, this is my fault. Dezu did not inflict this upon anybody. This is self-inflicted misery. So pretty simple, I guess. This isn't doing anything. We can put a piston here instead and use it to restart the machine after delay. So that'll make things really simple. I don't know why there's an observer there. I guess it's like a legacy thing from when I was trying to use an observer, or something like that. Who really knows, to be honest. So we're back over here. This is our development version of the machine. All right, so pretty simple. We're going to go ahead and take this glass block here and replace it with a sticky piston. And then basically we just want to implement a timer here and then move this observer over once the timer is up. That timer should be long enough to ensure that this flying machine here has gotten all the way back, but not too long, because the timer that we add here is basically just raw runtime getting added to the machine. It has to be long enough to ensure that the flying machine over here gets back, and ideally not any longer than that. So it would kind of behoove us to make it as optimal as possible. We probably won't. We can do kind of a napkin calculation of that. So over here we have this observer, and this observer is our timer observer. So after this moves 16 blocks in this direction, the observer gets triggered, and then it moves 16 blocks back. So that is 32 blocks of flying machine delay in this direction. Then we restart the machine, and let's say the machine is kind of around, I don't know, here-ish, whatever. I don't know, it's like 24 or something. So we'll just do 64 blocks of flying machine delay. So that's 32 blocks in each direction, and that should be good enough. It's unlikely it will crash the machine, and if it does, not my problem, unless it is my problem. But I guess it doesn't really matter anyways, because the entire purpose of this is to make the machine crash-proof. If it crashes like that, it's not exactly hard to fix, so not a big deal. I have made a serious miscalculation. Okay, well, I probably should have seen that one coming. Alright, so my first idea did not work out, tragically. It's a very sad situation. We're going to do a second idea here. It's a bit simpler and less likely to cause serious problems. So that redstone block is going to come over here. We're going to activate a piston. This piston here will be capable of moving itself back, which is always useful. Alright, so this will take me like 5 minutes. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that and come up with a system over here to send the machine back. Alright, so this looks a little ugly, but it's a pretty simple system. What will happen is that this will come back here with this piston, which will prep everything. And then when this piston here gets triggered by the observer on the flying machine, it will pull back this redstone block, which will retract this piston, which will activate this observer and send off this flying machine. This flying machine will come over here, activate this simple circuit, which will move over, and this flying machine will head back as well. So pretty basic. Hopefully it works, unlike everything else I've done, which is very sad. Everything here looks like it worked pretty much perfectly. And this flying machine comes over here to nothing. I don't... Eh? Oh. Alright, we're back, and let's go ahead and test it again. Well, that is not really what I was going for. My plan to come up with the simplest possible flying machine has utterly failed. Alright, someone is going to get scarred by this, but it's not me. So we're just going to go ahead and add an extension. Really, really basic extension here, here. That should just straight up work, actually. I think we're already done. Alright, so I'm just gone ahead and added some delay. The delay doesn't really affect anything, so I don't really care about the fact that we're adding delay. It's not a big deal. Again, I'm sure there's a more efficient way to do this that probably already exists, and quite frankly, I don't really care. We're just going to do it this way because I can, and it's more fun to make things yourself. And I also do not have an internet connection right now, so not a big deal. It's not really a problem. We're getting this to work anyway, so it's not a huge problem. So, wow, it's beautiful. Everything works just as it was supposed to. Yeah, very efficient, very effective. And I guess now we have to test it properly. So something I have discovered recently is that if you create a version of this machine that's 350 wide, you actually will need a secondary system to keep the piston items from despawning, because everything's kind of slow, unfortunately. So I will be that system, I guess, and we'll just verify that everything works. Huh. Okay, I think we're making another Ligmatic. Not really sure what's going on there, but I should probably fix that. Oh, cool. All of our logic is just straight up outside of our area selection. That's just what I was going for. Actually, I had this issue when I was developing the machine as well. I almost released a version that, well, I say almost released. Obviously, I test everything, so you never really end up with a machine that's just straight up broken. But yeah, I had like a release copy of the machine, and then I realized that I had like modified one of the area placements. I had modified this area placement because I was like, oh, there's plenty of room down here that we can shift this up and make the area placement lighter. And then over here, it's like, oh, you lose like one block. So it's really easy to miss, but you can't like move this area selection up unless you made an extra one over here. And there is actually an area selection just for this note block. It is, let's see, schematic, oh, where is it? Area selection? No, area editor, here we go. This note block matters to me. So that is just this specific note block. That is the only thing in that entire subregion, because it was kind of ugly to adjust anything else to include it. All right, let's go ahead and paste the machine in. It's perfect. This is a 10RD version, so we will downgrade. Well, it's not 10RD. It's some amount of RD, 10 sim distance. That's the point. This is a 10 sim. As you can see down here, oh, it goes away. As you can see down here, it is a 10 sim version, so we have our simulation distance set to 10. Okay, so I didn't actually add in a trigger mechanism for the machine, and I'm just realizing that now. We should probably go back and add that into the machine instead of adding it in over here, even though I would like to just immediately start testing. So first off, let's fix this. Pretty simple. I think we can just adjust this selection to include the piston. That's all well and good. But then we also need to make it so that we can start the machine. So this currently all needs to get pulled over, but this here is in the correct position. So really, this is not quite right. In theory, this piston has already pulled. So we're going to put this piston here, and then we'll put a trigger redstone block. So basically, you're going to destroy this redstone block to start the machine. Then you can replace the redstone block over here or whatever to stop the machine later. And then we need to move all this over in this direction by 1 block. So I'll just do that real quick. All right, and there we go. So this should fix everything, and we should be able to launch the machine like this. So we'll just destroy this redstone block to launch the machine. And then we can replace the redstone block later. Somewhere around here, we can place the redstone block here or whatever to stop the machine later. What that means basically is that placing this redstone block here is severing the connection between the floor placer, which is our new control system, and this section here, which is required for the floor placer to move over again. So we don't need to worry about the floor placer going again and again and again, because it'll only go when it gets the pistons from this segment. And this segment here is basically waiting for this piston to pull back, which we've blocked by using this redstone block. Hopefully it works this time without any more issues caused by negligence, and we can test it out and see if it works. Of course, by working, I mean we need to verify that we get the piston items back at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my inventory just so we can check how many piston items we get, and then we will watch the machine from over here. I don't think this worked. I'm going to go ahead and wager a guess that this did not work properly. All right, so what we're going to do is pretty basic. First off, we need to make sure that this piston here is connected. As you can see, we're not moving it over. And second of all, we need to fix the push limit. So when we connect everything, right now this is 12 blocks. If we connect the piston, as you can see, it goes up to 14. We can only pull 12 blocks. So we're going to need to do this a bit differently. Thankfully, it's not that hard. So we'll just remove that piston there, remove this logic here. We're just going to do something a bit janky. I'm a big fan of janky things, okay? So don't judge me. A bit of jank, it's always nice. And this will be really, really simple to do, so it's not a huge concern. Okay, so we've added this piston here, and as you can see, it's 11 blocks, it's fine. We could even move it over a block if we wanted. Not going to bother, but yeah, we could do that in theory. This here is 11 blocks, so we need to do something a bit janky. Well, beautiful, sorry, not janky. Just going to go ahead and add an observer there. As you can see, 12 blocks. Still gets pulled back because this observer here pushes back this slime, and therefore this redstone block. And we'll just add a little bit of logic over here. Nothing too complicated. Add a piston here because otherwise this redstone block would stick to like slime blocks here. Speed doesn't really matter because we have basically an infinite amount of time to move this piston over again. What we care about is that it retracts instantly, which it will. What we care about is that the piston retracts instantly, which it will, but we don't care how long it takes to move over in this direction physically and get beside the redstone block again. As long as it's done before this all comes back, it should be fine. Yeah, this time, as you can see, the player is moving. That's a pretty big improvement. The machine probably will not blow up as it encounters a chunk border over here. Alright, so in theory, we should have a crap load of pistons over here. That would be really useful if we did. The machine should not start again for a while, though. So this will go down, that's fine. This is all looking good to me so far. It should extract all the pistons, that should be fine. We'll fly over in a second when this is done, just to see everything in person. Normally this would be launching. That's not actually true. It would launch soonish. Okay, so this has come over, and we're going to launch this timer. And I'm going to go ahead and fly over here. We should have a bunch of pistons. We do, that's perfect. And the machine is not restarting, so we are basically just waiting right now. We're waiting for this timer here. This player is already all the way back. This is way too long of a timer. I'm not going to bother shortening the timer, but you could definitely probably have it, to be honest. Because I just realized that like half the timer is this flying machine anyways. Actually, most of the timer is this flying machine, so it doesn't really make a difference. There is Okay, there's something I forgot, uh, which is that we need to use this flying machine here to reactivate this flying machine. I'll be honest, we're not gonna go back and test the machine again. We're just gonna go ahead and add it in real quick. So, how many blocks is this? We have, looks like it's 9 blocks. Pretty simple, I think. This comes back. It will activate this piston here, this piston here, this piston here, and a glass here. And we just have to kind of move this over, I guess. This was supposed to be a sticky piston, so all is well. And this is normally what would happen. This would get sent back, all is well. Everything worked perfectly. As obviously everything would work perfectly. How could anything go wrong? And then when this comes back next time, it'll do the same thing, push everything over. By the way, I should probably mention, this is a modified version of the ice line that works for when your distance is just right, that it won't properly move everything over. We shoot everything off to the side here, and then it lands on a little platform, and the player can pick it up. I'll probably publish the schematic, even though it doesn't actually work. So there we go, we got all the pistons back. That's exactly what we were trying to do. So normally we would place all these pistons, which is quite a few pistons. That's 348, and we have 350 on us. So we will place one piston over here. Nothing should happen. I think I placed 2. That's fine though, not a big deal. Yeah, and everything moves over. All is well. The bedrock breaker starts again, and we start making the pistons headless. And this player here has been launched. Yeah, it all looks good to me. Because we got the pistons back, that means that unless there's a chunk alignment issue that I accidentally added, at least for this chunk alignment that we tested, it works. So yeah, there you go. That's content for you, I guess. So I won't lie, I just kind of had this idea last night at like 1 AM. I thought, you know, this would be kind of useful. And that is why we have this video. And today I had no internet, and that's actually why we have this video. So I don't really have anybody to thank. I don't have any credits to do. I also don't really want to edit a video right now, so I'm probably just going to cut this down really basically, really lightly, and then go back to working on the explanation video. Don't look forward to the explanation video. It's on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of like how deeply technical it is, it's probably like a 2. I don't know. Lazy chunks. How technical is the idea of a lazy chunk? It's not very technical. So yeah, I got bad news if you're looking forward to that one. Not bad news. I mean, it'll be what you would expect. It's just an explanation of the mechanics behind this machine. But we're not going to go over like bedrock breaking or anything. Yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching. I don't really know what to do anymore because I guess this video is done. There you go. There's better versions of this machine. Don't use this unless you really want to use one of my jank extensions, or you want to use the web tool that I made for this, which I will admit, I use it every time. I would not use a different machine because I don't want to do addition 5 times. That kind of sounds silly when you say it out loud, but point is, go subscribe to Dezu, and yeah, have a nice day.